I will be talking today about environmental, physiological models and genetic indicators, how they are used to characterize gene conservation units, and how the process was of selecting these indicators. Now, this is not maybe the most sexy topic for researchers, but I think it's a really important one, because if we don't know or we don't have any way to describe the genetic resources, we don't know what is happening with them, and it is essential to have some kind of descriptors to do that and to monitor their state. Now, I will be talking about indicators, but let's keep them loosely defined, because it's not like an indicator that you would see official definitions of indicators. So how did we start? We started by asking the end users what kind of information on gene conservation units they would like to have. And what they told us is that they want to have information about diversity of gene conservation units, so about the genetic resources. And on the picture, you can see an example of diversity in case of leaf autumn phenology in a beach conservation unit in Slovenia. The second thing the end users wanted was information on distinctiveness, or so how a given gene conservation unit differs from other gene conservation units. And an example of that is, for example, gene pools defined genetically. Here you have a picture from Adelaide Tararosa's paper from this year, and you can see that there are multiple gene pools here in maritime pine. And then the third thing that the end users wanted information about was vulnerability. And vulnerability is a little bit more difficult to define, first of all, because the definitions on that differ. We are not so much used to working with it. And then also people from different groups, for example, geneticists or ecophysiologists or modelers, they look at vulnerability in slightly different ways. So we looked at how vulnerability is described. The main source was actually the IPCC reports, and here you can see that it differs between different reports. And then at the end, discussing within the project, we decided to go for the IPCC 2007 framework, where vulnerability is at the cross between exposure, sensitivity, and adaptive capacity. And then the stronger the exposure to a given to something in the environment, for example, warm weather, and the higher the sensitivity, the sensitivity, which is the internal property of a population, then the more vulnerable that population is. On the other hand, adaptive capacity works in the other way. So the higher the adaptive capacity, the lower the vulnerability of the population. Then also we integrated the other two requests by the end users into adaptive capacity. The diversity, of course, if diversity is high, genetic diversity, for example, the adaptive capacity of a population is supposed to be higher, and then the vulnerability lower. And with distinctiveness, it's not that clear. It can go both directions. Now, when we had the theoretical framework, we needed to look within the projects what kind of data FORGENIUS is generating. And this is provided by working packages 1 to 4. And the data that we are getting from these working packages are coming from remote sensing, from modeling. There are data that are recorded in gene conservation units physically. These are the trait data. Then we have fertility and fecundity data, and of course, genomic data also based on sampling in the gene conservation units. And when we look at the quantity of this data, we can see that we can characterize all gene conservation units with remote sensing data, and almost all we can characterize with model data depending on the parameters that are available within the project or in the literature. Then the second in abundance are the genetic data, and that is because we have been sampling for genetic analysis more species than for phenotypic data, and at the end then we have least data for the phenotypes, because these are also more they require much more time and much more effort to record such data. And then for ease of understanding by the end users, we have grouped all these different data into 5 categories of indicators. These are environmental, forest, genetic, modeled, and phenotypic. And again, here the borders between different categories were not straightforward to assign. And when we get feedback from the end users on the system, we can still reshuffle the indicators, maybe moving them from phenotypic to forest or vice versa. And you can see in the circles how this indicate, or how the data for these indicators were gathered. Now I will start with the second part of the presentation, and I will present indicators, and I will not go into detail. Don't be afraid about that. I will just go through groups of indicators very quickly, presenting some examples. If we look first at the environmental indicators, these are mainly belong to the exposure category of the vulnerability. And within the environmental indicators that we will have in EUGIS are indicators describing orography of the gene conservation unit, the soil. Then we have normalized difference water and vegetation indexes, gross primary production, leaf area index. And that was it from one group of the indicators. We go to the next one now, which are the forest indicators. Now we grouped, this group is formed by indicators that are easily understandable by GCU managers, by foresters managing our genetic resources. To this category, indexes such as DBH or biomass or basal area, the percentage of dead trees and abundance of natural regeneration belong to. And you can see here that we have selected, I will call that tagged. We have tagged some for vulnerability and diversity. And why do we have indicators that are there but are not tagged as especially important for these 3 categories? This is because we tag the ones that are easier to understand, that give us the most information, but nevertheless all the other indicators that will be in EUGIS are very important because they can give us the background, so we can easier understand one of the tagged indicators, and they can give us also additional information. So if we describe, for example, why did we take abundance of natural regeneration as one of the indicators? Well, when we have a gene conservation unit at a certain age, and we expect the generation turnover, well, we have to have natural regeneration, right? And if we don't have natural regeneration at that time, then the indicator is signaling to us, oh, there is something wrong. Maybe we have to think about the management strategies for this gene conservation unit, maybe open up the canopy, or maybe think about collecting seeds so we can use seedlings to regenerate this particular gene conservation unit, and things like that. Then the third group of indicators are genetic indicators. Here you can see that all the indicators are tagged by one or the other of these categories: diversity, distinctiveness, and vulnerability. And to genetic indicators belong the indicators of several indicators of genetic diversity. Then we have population differentiation, recessive genetic load, genomic offset, inbreeding, admixture and hybridization indexes, proportion of reproductive trees, and evolvability. Now, some are easier to calculate than others, and also later on in EUGIS, we will not have information for all the species and for all the GCUs for all of these indicators. That again depends on the sampling strategy. To take one of the genetic indicators here, genomic offset. The genomic offset is the magnitude of genetic shift in allele or genotype frequencies that is required from the population to maintain the current fitness under changed environment. And if we are now, do you see my pointer? No? Okay. So if we are now at the
yes, we see.
You see it? Okay, great. So if we are now here in this population in a given climate, this is what kind of genetic is behind the adaptiveness of this population. So when the climate changes, then we will need the population to be adapted to this climate, and the change between what is now and what will be required in the future is the genomic offset. And we have used, for example, this indicator in the paper that I have quoted before by Adelaide Terraros, and we have seen that genomic offset is higher in ecologically marginal populations. On the x-axis is the ecological index, so these are the populations in average environment. The further right we go, the more marginal the environment. And on the y-axis, the genomic offset. The next group of indicators are modeled indicators. These are modeled based on parameters. And in this group, we have indicators risk of frost damage, then we have risk of desiccation during drought, and average yearly drought index related to drought, vulnerability to wildfire, and risk of carbon starvation. And again, a quick presentation of one of the indicators, in this case, risk of frost damage. Now, risk of frost damage for us is the simulated percentage of leaf buds or young leaves that are killed by one or more frost events during a year, and it is modeled using the Castanea model. And why is this indicator telling us about vulnerability? Well, because if leaves are damaged, then the trees are more under stress. They don't have the photosynthetic apparatus to produce their sugars. And the more this happens, the more vulnerable the population in entirety is. And here we come to the last category of the indicators, which are the phenotypic indicators. The largest group here are the hydraulic traits related to drought, capacitance, conductance, leaf turgor loss point, xylem vulnerability to embolism. Then we have wood density, tree allometry traits, leaf area, dieback, and Huber value. And what I have to say here that all the indicators for these traits were measured in the field, always on 10 trees. And there is a separate indicator for the mean and a separate indicator for the variances, because the means will usually tell us something about distinctiveness, while the variances will tell us about diversity. And if we go to one of these traits, one of the hydraulic traits, let's say P50, which is the water potential at which 50% of the capacity of xylem to conduct water from roots to the leaves is lost. It signals us kind of a point where where there is not enough water for the tree to survive, and then they start dying off. So on the left graph, you have the curves. On the x-axis, the xylem pressure. On the y-axis is the percentage of the loss of conductance. And then P50 is one of these hydraulic traits that you can see here. And then if we go to the other graph, we can see that when the pressure drops, usually the percentage of leaf loss of conductance increases. And then in this gray zone are the trees that are exhibiting symptoms of dying. So this is also a very important trait, a very important indicator. And that was it for describing the indicators. I just want to show you now how this will look like in EarthGIS. So in EarthGIS, you will have an indicator with a name. There will always be a definition. Then behind the second click, there will be a description, which will tell us how the indicator was calculated. And then how to interpret this calculator. And what is being developed now is also the visualizations of these indicators that will look a little bit like that. This is again the picture from Adelaide's paper. For example, we have population-specific FST, which is a level of genetic differentiation of the target population or a population in a GCU from the ideal ancestral population. And then we can see that here populations in the south, in Africa or in the east are more differentiated from this ancestral population than the populations in the core of the distribution range, and this FST was also connected with marginality. So the more marginal the populations were, the more the higher their genetic differentiation was. Oh, now I got mixed up. But anyway, you understand, right? And then there is a second indicator, for example, inbreeding. This one is tagged for diversity and vulnerability. Again, we have a definition and a description. Here for this one in maritime pine, no landscape pattern. But anyway, when we have a higher degree of inbreeding, that means more mating between relatives, that the genetic diversity in a population is lower. And therefore, the population might be also more vulnerable because it has potentially lower adaptive capacity. So in terms of numbers, there is again a pyramid about how many indicators we have. Well, there is quite a lot. I presented only a subset now, and I never mentioned that there is a lot of indicators or a lot of data points in EarthGIS that are coming from linked information systems such as the CHELSA or Drought Observatory, and those will also be all available for a given gene conservation unit. I have been presenting now a bit the middle level and the top level of the pyramid, and I have already said that not everything is tagged, but just a selection of what we perceive the most informative indicators. And that doesn't mean that the others are not important. And that is it. I just want to take the last 10 seconds to tell you that we plan to release EarthGIS for public use in October next year. And at that point, all this data will be available for you if you register to become a user of EarthGIS. And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marjana. This is really showing that the FORGENIUS project is getting closer to its final goals, and that's very nice. We have maybe time for a short question for Marjana, and then we can hold the rest of the questions back for the maybe final discussion after Giulio Marchi's talk. Yeah, I see Sean has raised his hand, so please, Sean. Hi.
Hello, Ivan. Hi, Marjana. A quick question. You showed the map of the UFGIS interface, and you showed yellow, red, and orange dots as an example for the inbreeding indicator. I was wondering how you do find the threshold to, I think you showed, yes, I guess maybe some warning signal for yellow, red, or orange?
Yeah, no, it's the figure is from the paper by Adelaide Terraros from Diversity and Distributions. This is not how it will look in EarthGIS, and we will not have thresholds. So what we will do is, based for the species, all the data that we have, we will distribute that. The user will be able to make categories. Do you want to have 5 or 3 different 3 different classes from the minimum to the maximum value in an indicator, and that will be then shown on a map. This is how we will be doing it, because it's very difficult to define thresholds, especially when we don't, for some of the species, this will be the first knowledge that we will get, for example, for some of the species. So yeah, this is something for another project, to define the meaningful thresholds, to know if we have enough diversity, if we don't have, if we should do something to increase the diversity, for example.
Perfect. Okay, yeah. Thank you so much. That was very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks a lot. Well, I think maybe it's time for you, Marjana, to introduce our guest, and then.
Oh, I'm still sharing my screen, right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so our next guest will be Giulio Marchi. I hope I pronounce your name correctly.
Perfect.
Right? And you are coming from FAO, and you will be presenting, you will be presenting to us EarthMap. I think it's a very useful system, and especially for foresters, and maybe also for the researchers. So please, Giulio.
All right, good afternoon. Thanks for the invitation. And yes, here we are operating at a different scale than the last presentation. So my name is Giulio Marchi from FAO, Geospatial Specialist. I'm going to introduce you a tool that we have been developing in the last years. And without any further ado, I'm going to show you. All right, so the thing is called EarthMap. We call it land monitoring made easy in order to have a very easy to use interface to the most, let's say, common features and data sets, both in Earth Engine, but also coming from other free available sources of data. Now, I have a particular passion for the keyhole corona images, so this is just to show you that actually many data sets, many geographical data sets have been acquired in the last decades, even if at that time they were military secret or at least not available, or maybe being available on purchase. Right now, in the last 10, 15 years, the availability of freely available geospatial data has increased geometrically. And for example, we can see these main milestones in the last 20 years, ranging from the release of Google Earth. That was really a groundbreaking, let's say, tool for everybody, bringing at that time, with the initial version, the Landsat imagery in the hands of everyone. Then actually the full Landsat archive was open in 2008 from the US Geological Survey. But still here, until the 2008, let's say, the availability became extremely wide. The price for each Landsat image went from $700 few $1,000 to zero, but the usability was still an issue. And that is where Google in 2010 approximately started with this Earth Engine portal, in which not only they made available the full Landsat archive, MODIS, and several other images and sensors, but they also coupled this huge bucket of data with a cloud computer that was available for, let's say, everyone out there with the connection and the browser. Now, just to finish the milestones, the ones I consider milestones is, of course, in 2015, the release of the Sentinel-2 from the European Space Agency, that at least in our domain is one of the most used products for remote sensing. Now, this is what actually Google Earth Engine looks like. So it's a blank tool in which either you write a script, import a script, adapt a script, but anyway, you have the blinking cursor syndrome in the sense that you need to write something there, otherwise the tool doesn't do anything. So let's say the usability was increased, but still the know-how was and is necessary to use Earth Engine for any application. Earth Engine can be applied to several possible, to really a wide range of use cases. And so in 2013, we started to develop this Collect Earth. I will share the presentation. You will have all the possible references. Collect Earth in this open forest, we call it a suite of tools developed in FAO, with the main idea to release easy tools with an open approach, open both in the import, let's say, of the data as in the export of the data. Collect Earth was used, let's say, for land monitoring, mainly for the reporting mechanism of the UNEP-FAO, so that the countries could prepare the activity data for their reporting, coupling, as you can see in this image, the very high resolution image of Google Earth with the custom form that can be further customized according to the needs of the survey, a custom form where the user enters the information on a specific plot, and this very same plot is geographically coupled with other sources, other freely available sources of data, like Bing Maps, Yandex, but also a custom window of Earth Engine. So immediately the user clicking on one plot can see that plot, let's say, in different times in Google Earth if the image is available, but also in other sources, as well as in Earth Engine, where immediately you can have displayed vegetation indexes charts in time. And he can investigate further with other images so that he can fill this form above, and at the end of the day, at the end of the week, at the end of the survey, the full assessment of the area can be prepared. This allowed us to end up on the front page of Science, thing of which we are, of course, very proud of, and with a large exercise globally for the extent of forest in the drylands. We also published the methodology on the remote sensing journal. This led to the memorandum of understanding with Google, started in 2015 and then eventually renewed every other 4 years. But enough with that, let's go to the main guest of the day. So this is because we felt that even with Collect Earth, we were still missing something in order to ease the access of, let's say, everyone to the main used data and features in, let's say, in the environment and climate domain. So we came up with this idea of EarthMap, where you have a central frame for the image, a left column where the user can select the area, the administrative levels below the country, or it can even import its own areas, or it can even draw a polygon on the map. Eventually, the user can select among these tens, almost hundreds of data, which image product to display in the central window. And this is fine and this is nice. We all like images, but at the end of the day, what we need most of the times are statistics for the various environmental or climatic parameters. So once the user clicks on a polygon in the central image, he can actually derive statistics, temporal statistics for that specified polygon. This allowed us to also support several large project design, both for the Green Climate Fund, for the World Bank, and so on. So the whole interface is based on Earth Engine. The data come either from Earth Engine or from other available sources that we found around and anyway included into EarthMap. Is fully point and click. There are tens of possible data sets. I invite you to have a look and think around EarthMap, because it's literally plug and play. You open it and you start tinkering with it, and there is literally no, let's say, learning curve involved. As I was saying, we are striving to have an open approach in the sense that all the possible layers come with a short description, but at the same time, you can also go quickly with an information button on the original source of the datasets. The results can be exported in the usual common formats, both as charts or images or values like XLS or CSVs. Also, the images can be downloaded, although, let's say, even the Earth Engine platform itself is not meant for download, so there are limitations involved. And there is full documentation in the platform if you click this question mark over here. Now, in just a few months ago, we received from Google this Impact Award, because we were channeling so many people to Earth Engine just with few clicks that, of course, let's say many users, even the experienced ones, sometimes they prefer just to do a couple of clicks around than to write a full code for their own purpose. We published the methodology also of EarthMap in the Journal of Remote Sensing, and right now we are pretty busy in several customizations of the portal for specific activities. One of which is this collaboration with the UNEP I'm going to show you in a moment for climate risk analysis, plus other ones that you can find here for, let's say, the North Macedonia, a specific portal for them, and other initiatives. A couple of minutes on this slide, because it can represent very quickly what can be done in EarthMap with few clicks. We were involved, and we are still involved, in the Great Green Wall initiative on these three main areas, being Northern Africa, Sahel, and SADC. Through EarthMap, it was possible to rapidly derive for these three major areas the heat stress trend, meaning the number of days per each year where the temperature was above a certain threshold that we set at 32 degrees. All these for 20 years, from 2000 to year 2020. So this is not rocket science, but imagine the amount of data that has to be crunched in order to derive the number of days per year for all these areas above this threshold in 20 years. Through EarthMap, it was possible just to import the three polygons and eventually do some data massaging afterwards in Excel. And this led us to understand that in the SADC area, actually the number of days with above the threshold was incredibly increasing along these 20 years. Enough with that. In EarthMap, we also coupled, the user can just reach it through a link on the top, another Earth Engine app, through which is possible to compare immediately two images being selected in these two windows here, these two frames here, and the user can just select either different images or different days or both in order to compare them visually. Now, we have had we have kept several trainings around the globe, and we've been supporting, as I was saying, several large project designs, institutions, but also the submissions to the UNFCCC, especially with Collect Earth. We have been supporting the design of large Green Climate Fund project, the FAO ones for Pakistan and Kyrgyzstan, and also activities from the World Bank project from the World Bank in Myanmar and Kosovo. Now, I'm not going into this because this is a crazy video. I can provide it on demand. We created it for the several examples of the activities that can be done into EarthMap, but the time right now doesn't allow it. I just wanted to show you to conclude. This is the customization was created for North Macedonia. So their own set of data with their own analysis, some of them matching the original EarthMap ones. This is the what is in the plot WHISP portal currently under development, mostly, let's say, forest focused, on which the user can select several data sets here on the left, and immediately some other statistics, some statistics are calculated here on the right. And eventually, finally, the Strata portal collaboration with the UNEP, where the convergence of evidence of different layers is calculated from the climate environment topic as the socioeconomic vulnerability and the population exposure, meaning that this hotspot map will give in a glance what kind of areas presents this convergence of different types of problems in one area only. And in the same way, statistics are calculated here on the right to give the user a finer, more resoluted optics on the area under analysis. And the user can also eventually drill down on the specific parameters and indicators per each area, so you can really understand what is happening over there, because all these data are being updated, let's say, as soon as they are released, meaning in the order of, let's say, from 2 weeks to 6 months before the current time. And this is a short introduction to EarthMap. I think we can open it either for questions, comments, or what else?
Thank you very much, Giulio. It was super interesting, and I think this really shows the power of actually putting together pieces of information and data from different sources and making them available to not only to the general public, but also to specialists in an intuitive way. Thanks a lot for your presentation. Right, we can open the discussion. If there's any question, we have a comfortable amount of time for us for discussions. We have about 20 minutes, so that's fine. Please, if you want to ask a question, just speak up. Marjana, please.
Yeah, I saw that you had deforestation there. How often how often is that, how current is the information? How often does it reload or it's updated?
I'm going live. All disclaimers apply. Any particular country you're interested into?
I don't know. We don't have that in Slovenia. I'm from Slovenia, but take a country that you know that happens, or maybe another question is Slovenia. Well, coming. We had a big forest fire last in 2022, so maybe that should be seen already.
So, because for fires there are specific data sets. This is, for example, for the last year of observation. According to the color, you get a different.
Yeah. They are there. So 1 year.
Yeah, because according to the layer you're interested into, even ourselves we do it, because right now we are literally losing count of the layers and data sets in the platform, you can click on this I button. A short description will be provided, but literally a very short summary. If the summary is not enough answering the question, let's say, what kind of data these guys put up in this platform, there are additional links to the source of that layer, in which you can really understand the time frame. In this case, this layer arrives to November 24. That is kind of surprising. Wonder why it's not more recent. This should be released. Anyway, this is the answer anyway to the question, because per each layer, of course, there are different sources and different characteristics, meaning really different resolutions, update frequency, and so on.
Okay.
Let's go back.
So it will depend on the,
yes,
on the layer
absolutely,
or the data
absolutely.
that you're looking for.
Absolutely.
And then maybe I have another sub question, like when you have forest management that is large scale, like plantations and cuttings, is there any way that you can, you can differentiate the plant management from something that might be,
not
deforested
automatically.
Because okay.
That is something that we do, but with the other application collect earth, that is very powerful, but at the same time it requires way more, let's say, human operations, because there is a phase of image interpretation that has to be done by a group of people, not even a single individual. And eventually, after you analyze the full area, detailing each and every plot according to the parameters you have set at the beginning of the survey, at the end of the survey, you can have an understanding on what changed or not and where. But because here the only things that barely resembles what you said are different, for example, length cover data sets, but of course you don't get the kind of granularity that you were asking for. In this case, this is the length cover from the climate change initiative of the European Space Agency. Even if you, let's say, you click on the full country and then here on the right, you pick the same layer, you will have the analysis being run live.
Oh, it's pretty fast.
Sorry?
It's pretty fast.
Yes, it depends. I mean, if you do this for Canada or Chile, maybe it will not be as fast as this, but yeah, somewhere in between. And hovering with the mouse, no, this is too big. Yes, hovering with the mouse, you have an idea of how it changed, but of course this is not the way to look at data. I mean, you can just look at it, but you cannot actually interact with the data in this way. So you can, for example, download either the image of the chart, and you have the image for possible reuse, opening over there. You have the image with all the legend, but especially you can download it as CSV. And once you open the CSV, of course, you can further elaborate, massage, chart these numbers as you wish.
Okay, that's nice.
You can also, in this case, immediately get the land use change matrix. So you have an idea in this given time period how the different classes changed or did not change from one to the other. So along the diagonal, you have no change. And any other figure is the number of hectares that moved from one class to the other in this time period.
Yeah,
and you can select the, let's say, you want to have from 2000 to 2022. Oops, I get 2009. Anyway, you can also set your period of time, and eventually have the calculation, the custom calculation for the period of time. Export it and so on and so forth.
Okay, very nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maurizio, please. I guess you are the next one. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much for the presentation. Very interesting. A general question and then a slightly more specific one. I was not clear whether the EarthMap now completely supersedes the earlier tool that you mentioned, Collect Earth, or whether the first one maintains some independent function. And the second one, more specific, is whether all these products have been converted into the same spatial resolution, or whether they maintain original different resolutions, etc. More details, technical question. Thank you.
The two products coexist because they have totally different purposes, applications. Because with Collect Earth, you can get the granularity that sometimes many times with EarthMap is not possible, and you can prepare in a survey so specific that with EarthMap would be totally impossible. Let's say EarthMap is more of a hub of different data sets that already exist out there in the world with an open license. We make them available as they are. So there is no further, let's say, refinement, change of resolution, and not even, of course, let's say, an attempt. There is no attempt to uniform them to the same resolution or time frame. So that's why each data set has its own introductory text, and at the same time, the user can go to the original source of the data. So just to understand all the possible detail per each individual, per each single layer.
And so if I may, just to further understand, this is sort of a community project driven by the willingness of each partner to put the data into your framework then? That's
an interesting question, actually, because initially we started EarthMap thinking that someone would have needed it, and then we realized that actually someone was needing it in the sense that, for example, in FAO, but also with other contacts in the World Bank or in the Green Climate Fund, or even the countries themselves, we always hear the sentence, we don't have data, we don't know what is going on over there. Actually, that is, let's say, is less and less true for less and less places, in the sense that there is an amount of data that is incredible right now, increasing constantly day after day. What is missing most of the times is some aggregation and some way to make them available not to the general public, but let's say to the project designers in our case. So the initial development of EarthMap was aiming just to that, to ease the use of these data sets for experts in the countries, but also to facilitate several project design that occurred in the last years. And the full development of EarthMap was actually demand-driven. So we started with what we already imagined that would have been the common set of features and data that everyone would have asked, and plus we added the features in time according to specific requests we had. So anyway, now it's open. Whoever can go to earthmap.org and use it. So let's say in a way that the use is most out of our hands, in the sense that many people, groups, organizations, colleagues, even here, they use it without even, of course, informing us, because it's a portal, it's open, and that's it.
Any other questions for one or the other of our speakers? Yeah, I'm not 100% sure if I see all raised hands, if there's any, but I don't see any. While we wait for more questions to come, just a curiosity, Giulio, approximately how many people worked for how long to obtain this result, to achieve this?
I could say that we are a group of, say, tens and tens of people working in the last 5 years, as it should have been, but actually we are a very narrow group working on this thing since 2016-17 approximately. We launched it in the Geo for Good Summit, that is a session of Google for the developers, let's say, in the geographical domain in Dublin in 2017. And our group is really too small for what we should be.
I see. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right. I don't see any further raised hands. If there's no further comments, I just want to say a word to advertise the fact that next year, on the third week of November, there will be the final conference of the FORGENIUS project, which will be joined with the EVOL3 conference, which is held every second year. And so this is going to happen in Madrid. The exact program the program will be, the first version of the program, the preliminary one, will be prepared soon. And so if you want to have news about this, you might want to have a look at the forgenius.eu or evol3.org websites to see the updates. And with this, well, I really want to warmly thank Giulio Marchi for spending time with us and sharing his views and results. I also want to thank Marjana Westergren for presenting the project's data and results. And with this, well, I wish to thank you all for attending, and I wish you a very nice evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the interest.